Every morning in Bergen, Norway, a Norwegian elk hound named Storm sits by the living room window. His ears are forward, his body is tense. He's watching his owner, Ingrid, gather her keys, her coat, her bag. And something shifts in his chest that she never sees. Because she's already preparing herself for the guilt of leaving. She's already rehearsing the apology she'll give him with her eyes. And Storm feels every single second of it. She kneels down. She cups his face in her hands. She says, "I'll be back soon, I promise," her voice heavy with emotion. She hugs him longer than usual. She kisses his head 3 times. And then she leaves. The door closes. And Storm's heart rate spikes. His breathing quickens. He begins to pace. Because what Ingrid thought was love, Storm experienced as fear. And this happens in homes all over the world, every single day. Owners breaking their dogs' hearts without ever meaning to. You think you're being kind when you make your goodbye emotional. You think you're showing your dog how much you care. But here's the truth that most people never realize. Your dog doesn't understand your words. They understand your energy. And when you leave with anxiety, with guilt, with that heavy feeling of, "I hate leaving you," your dog doesn't hear "I love you." They hear something is wrong. They hear danger. They hear you're not sure if you're coming back. Dogs are masters at reading human emotion. They've spent 15,000 years learning the micro-expressions of our faces, the shifts in our voice, the tension in our bodies. Studies show they can detect changes in our cortisol levels through scent alone. So when you approach your departure with stress, your dog's brain registers it as a threat response. Their cortisol spikes too. Their nervous system activates. And you've just told them, without meaning to, that being alone is something to fear. Watch what happens in the 20 minutes before you leave. Your dog starts following you from room to room. They won't settle. They might whine softly or paw at your leg. Some dogs start panting even though they're not hot. Others pace in circles or repeatedly go to the door and back to you. This isn't clinginess. This is anxiety building in real time. Your dog is reading every signal you're giving off. And if you're moving with tension, checking the time, sighing, feeling guilty, your dog is absorbing all of it. They're preparing for something bad. In Norway, there's a saying among the old sled dog handlers: "En nervøs fører lager en nervøs hund." A nervous leader makes a nervous dog. These handlers understood something most pet owners miss. Dogs don't need our emotion during departures. They need our certainty. When a musher leaves their dogs at base camp and heads into town, they don't linger, they don't apologize. They simply go. Because they trust the dogs can handle it. And that trust becomes the dog's confidence. But we've lost that understanding in modern pet ownership. We've turned our dogs into our emotional dependents. We project our own separation anxiety onto them. We feel guilty for having lives outside our homes. So we compensate with long goodbyes, with baby talk, with excessive affection right before we leave. And we think we're being good dog owners. We think we're showing love. But we're actually doing the opposite. We're teaching our dogs that our departure is a crisis. Here's what happens in your dog's brain when you leave with anxious energy. Their amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear, lights up. Cortisol floods their system. Their heart rate increases. And for the first 15 to 20 minutes after you're gone, they're in a state of genuine distress. Some dogs bark. Some dogs howl. Some dogs destroy things. And owners think it's behavioral. They think the dog is being spiteful or badly behaved. But it's not behavioral. It's physiological. It's a nervous system that's been activated by the message you accidentally sent. Researchers in canine cognition have studied this extensively. They've measured stress hormones in dogs after different types of departures, and the results are clear. Dogs whose owners leave with calm, neutral energy recover within minutes. Their cortisol levels drop. Their heart rate normalizes. They settle into rest or sleep. But dogs whose owners leave with emotional, prolonged goodbyes stay in a state of stress for hours. Some never fully calm down until their owner returns. The very thing we think is kindness is actually cruelty. Storm's story isn't unique. In apartments across Oslo, in houses throughout Stavanger, in homes on every continent, this same scene plays out. The owner feels terrible about leaving, so they overcompensate. They give extra treats. They turn on special music. They leave the television on. They make promises in soft voices. And the dog learns that departure equals emergency. That being left alone is something that requires all this preparation, all this emotional labor. So the dog begins to dread it too. Some dogs start showing anticipatory anxiety hours before their owner leaves. They recognize the pattern. Shower in the morning means leaving soon. Car keys on the counter means departure is coming. Shoes by the door means goodbye is near. And their stress builds gradually throughout the morning. By the time the owner actually walks out, the dog has been in a state of low-grade panic for an hour or more. This is what we've accidentally trained them to feel. There's a specific behavior that breaks hearts once you know what you're seeing. Some dogs will bring their owner a toy right before they leave, not to play, but as an offering. As a desperate attempt to make the owner stay, they're saying, "Look, I have something valuable, please don't go." Other dogs will press their entire body against their owner's legs, trying to physically anchor them in place. It's not cute. It's not affection in that moment. It's fear. It's a living being trying to prevent what they've learned to experience as abandonment. The cruelest part is that it's a cycle that feeds itself. Your dog's anxiety makes you feel worse about leaving, so you compensate with even more emotional goodbyes, which increases your dog's anxiety, which makes you feel even worse. And on and on. Both of you trapped in a pattern that neither of you created consciously, but both of you are suffering from. Your guilt becomes their fear. Their fear becomes your guilt. And the bond that should feel secure starts to feel fragile. But here's what most owners never realize. Your dog doesn't need your guilt. They need your leadership. They don't need long explanations. They need calm certainty. They don't need to know you'll miss them. They need to know you'll return. And the way you communicate that isn't through words or emotions. It's through energy, through the confidence in your body, through the lack of hesitation in your departure, through the message that leaving is normal, safe, and temporary. Storm is still sitting by that window in Bergen. But something could be different. Something could change. Because the mistake isn't permanent. The wound isn't beyond healing. There's a way to teach your dog that goodbye doesn't mean danger, that your absence doesn't mean abandonment, that love doesn't require anxiety, and it starts with understanding what your dog really needs from you in those moments before you walk out the door. What does your dog do in the minutes before you leave? Because once you start seeing the signs, you can't unsee them. And once you understand what you've accidentally been teaching, you can start teaching something different, something that gives your dog peace instead of panic, something that honors the trust they've placed in you. 3 weeks later, Storm sits by the same window in Bergen. But this morning, something is different. Ingrid is gathering her things, keys, coat, bag. But her energy has changed. There's no hesitation, no guilt in her movements. And Storm, instead of pacing, is lying calmly on his bed. His breathing is steady, his eyes are soft. Because Ingrid finally learned what Storm needed all along. Not her anxiety, her certainty. The fix isn't complicated. But it requires you to do something that feels completely wrong at first. You have to stop saying goodbye. Not forever. Just in the way you've been doing it. Because every long hug, every apologetic look, every "I'll miss you" whispered into their fur is a message your dog translates as danger. And if you want to give your dog peace, you have to start communicating safety instead. Here's what Ingrid learned from an old Norwegian dog trainer named Lars, who spent decades working with sled dogs in Finnmark. He told her something that changed everything. Your dog doesn't need to know you're leaving. They need to know you're always coming back. And you teach them that not through emotion, but through pattern. Through boring, predictable, calm repetition. Through becoming so unremarkable in your departures that your dog barely notices you've gone. The first step is the hardest because it feels cruel. 10 minutes before you leave, you stop interacting with your dog. Completely. No eye contact, no petting, no talking. You become neutral. You move through your morning routine like your dog isn't even there. And yes, they'll notice. They might approach you. They might paw at you. They might whine. And you ignore it all. Not because you don't love them, but because you're teaching them that your departure isn't an event worth getting worked up about. This is what Lars calls the boring goodbye. And it works because it removes all the emotional charge from leaving. When you stop making departure significant, your dog stops experiencing it as significant. Their nervous system stays calm because yours does. There's no cortisol spike because there's no threat signal. You're essentially teaching them that you leaving is as unremarkable as you walking into another room, which, to a dog's perception, is exactly what it should be. Ingrid started practicing this on a Saturday when she didn't actually have to leave. She got ready like she was going to work, put on her coat, picked up her keys, and then she sat down and read a book for 20 minutes. Storm was confused at first. He kept watching the door. But nothing happened, and slowly, his body relaxed. She did this 3 times that weekend. Getting ready, not leaving. Teaching Storm that the signals he'd learned to fear didn't always mean what he thought they meant. Then she started with micro-departures. She'd put on her coat, walk out the door, and come back in 30 seconds. No greeting, no excitement. Just walked back in, hung up her coat, and went about her day. Storm would jump up, ready to panic, and then she'd be back. Before his stress could build. Before his cortisol could spike. She did this 10 times over 2 days, 30 seconds. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Each time returning before Storm's anxiety could take root. The science behind this is elegant. You're reconditioning your dog's stress response. You're teaching their nervous system that your absence has a predictable end. That the door closing doesn't mean hours of uncertainty. Dogs don't process time the way we do. They can't understand, "I'll be back at 5 o'clock." But they can learn patterns. They can learn that door closes, owner returns. Over and over. Until it becomes a fact their body trusts even when their mind doesn't understand. Here's what surprised Ingrid most. It wasn't just about how she left. It was about how she returned. She'd always come home with so much excitement. "Oh, I missed you, sweet boy." Lots of petting and baby talk and reunion energy. She thought she was showing Storm how much she loved him. But what she was actually doing was confirming that her absence was a big deal. That being apart was dramatic. That reunion required all this emotional compensation. Lars taught her to do the opposite. When she came home, she ignored Storm for 5 minutes. She didn't greet him, didn't look at him. Just walked in, put her things away, maybe made a cup of tea. And only after Storm had settled, after his initial excitement had calmed, would she calmly call him over and give him quiet affection. No fanfare, no drama, just calm, grounded connection. And this taught Storm something profound, that her leaving and returning were both normal parts of the day's rhythm. Nothing to get activated about either way. Norwegian sled dog culture understands something about pack leadership that most pet owners have forgotten. A confident leader doesn't apologize for doing what needs to be done. They don't seek approval. They don't manage everyone else's emotions. They simply make decisions and trust the pack can handle it. And the pack, feeling that confidence, relaxes into it. They don't have to figure out what's safe or dangerous. The leader's certainty tells them everything they need to know. You can become that kind of leader for your dog, not through dominance or harshness, but through calm, consistent energy. Through making your departures so predictable and unremarkable that your dog's nervous system learns there's nothing to defend against. You're teaching them that they don't have to manage the emotional weight of you leaving. Because you're managing it, you're holding the certainty, and they can just rest. Ingrid also created what Lars called an anchor object, a specific worn t-shirt that smelled like her, placed in Storm's bed. But here's the key. She only put it there when she left. And she took it away when she returned. So, it became a signal, not of absence, but of her inevitable return. Storm learned that the shirt meant she was gone, but coming back. It was a promise made tangible. And over time, the shirt itself became calming. A physical reminder that this separation was temporary. She also started leaving Storm genuinely tired, not just physically exercised, but mentally exhausted. A 20-minute walk wasn't enough. She'd spend 15 minutes before leaving doing scent work with him, hiding treats around the apartment, making him use his nose and his brain. By the time she left, Storm was ready to sleep. His mind was satisfied, his body was calm, and a calm, tired dog doesn't have the energy to spiral into anxiety. The transformation didn't happen overnight. The first week was hard. Storm still paced sometimes, still whined at the door. But Ingrid stayed consistent. Boring goodbyes. Calm returns. Practice departures mixed with real ones. And slowly, week by week, Storm's body began to believe what Ingrid was teaching. That her leaving wasn't an emergency. That being alone was safe. That she always came back. By week 3, Storm had stopped pacing entirely. He'd walk Ingrid to the door, then turn around and go to his bed. Sometimes he'd watch her leave. Sometimes he wouldn't. And Ingrid realized that this disinterest in her departure was actually the deepest form of trust. Storm trusted her so completely that he didn't need to monitor her leaving. He knew she'd return. His nervous system knew it, and he could finally rest. Here's what this teaches us about love. Real love isn't about how much emotion we pour into every moment. It's about creating safety. It's about being so consistent, so trustworthy, so calm in our leadership that the beings who depend on us can relax. Your dog doesn't need your guilt. They need your certainty. They don't need long goodbyes. They need boring ones. They don't need to feel how much you'll miss them. They need to know, bone deep, that you're coming back. The Norwegian concept of ro captures this perfectly. It means calmness, but also rootedness, steadiness, the quality of being unshakable. And that's what your dog needs from you. Not excitement, not anxiety, not apology, just ro. Just the quiet confidence that everything is under control. That their world is safe even when you're not in it. That love doesn't require constant reassurance because it's simply a fact. Storm still sits by the window some mornings, but now he's watching birds, not waiting in panic. Now his body is loose, not tense. Now when Ingrid leaves, he might lift his head to acknowledge it, then go back to sleep. Because she fixed the mistake she didn't know she was making, she stopped communicating crisis and started communicating certainty. You can do this too. Starting tomorrow morning, 10 minutes of no interaction before you leave. A boring goodbye. A calm return. Practice it. Repeat it. Be so consistent that your dog's nervous system has no choice but to believe you, and watch what happens over the next few weeks. Watch how your dog's anxiety melts into trust, how their pacing turns to resting, how the behavior you thought was just who they are turns out to be something you accidentally taught them, and something you can unteach with patience and calm leadership. Because in the end, your dog doesn't need you to feel bad about leaving. They need you to feel confident about returning. They need you to hold the certainty that they can't hold for themselves. They need you to teach them, through your energy and your consistency, that goodbye is just another word for see you soon. And that love doesn't mean never leaving. It means always coming back. Have you noticed your dog getting anxious before you leave? What do they do in those final minutes? Because once you see it, you can change it. And once you change it, you give your dog something they've been waiting for all along. Peace, trust, and the quiet certainty that they're safe even when you're gone. If you want to understand what your dog really needs from you, follow for more truths that heal the bond between you, because your dog's peace of mind starts with yours, and the love you share deserves to feel secure, not fragile. One calm goodbye at a time.